speaking about the Me Too movement.
Yeah.
The Me Too movement has come home to roost.
Yes, it has. Good.
And I know that you're going to disagree with a lot of this article.
Okay.
Because I disagree with a lot of it as well.
All right. Let's hear.
It looks like Mike Pence is quite the trendsetter. Of course, that of course is a slap at Mike Pence, who, basically wants to say, yeah, I don't want to risk being accused of anything. I'm a married guy.
Right.
And, in this day and age, you don't know who to trust.
Right, sure.
But, of course, that's more or less like a backhanded slap.
Mm-hmm.
The U.S. Vice President famously refuses to have dinner alone with any woman who isn't his wife. And now working men across the corporate America appear to be following his lead.
Okay. Seems good so far.
A new study due to be published in the journal Organizational Dynamics has found that following the Me Too movement, men are significantly more reluctant to interact with their female colleagues.
Yeah. That makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah. A few highlights.
Well, hold on. Why would you take any risk anymore with this bullshit?
You would not take any risk at all, especially if you're going to lose your whole livelihood and perhaps be sued.
Yeah, exactly. Just fuck you. Stay away from me. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
That makes perfect sense to me.
Yep. 27% of the men avoid one-on-one meetings with female coworkers. Yep, that's right. Almost a third of men are. Now, here's the word that of course, they're trying to make this a ridiculous notion. Mm-hmm. 1/3 of men are terrified.
No, they're not.
To be alone in a room with a woman.
No, they're not. They're not terrified. They're just they're just smart.
They're just distrustful. They're not terrified.
Smart. Why would you put yourself in that fucking situation? If you went to the amusement park,
yeah,
and you watched the roller coaster going, and you saw a wheel pop off of it, would you get on that roller coaster?
No, you go, that's not a safe thing for me to do. Yeah, I think I'll pass.
He'd be like, nah, I'm not going to ride that, especially if you didn't see a maintenance crew put a new wheel on it.
Right.
If it just fucking popped off and you're like, yeah, and they're just like, yeah, it's only one wheel, you wouldn't get on the fucking roller coaster.
Yeah, you would just make an assessment and go, yeah, that's not a good idea.
Well, this isn't a good idea. And I'm going to argue the statistic that you read there, 27%, that's probably about 50% too low. I would say about 75, 77% of the people don't want nothing to do with fucking a risky situation, like a one-on-one with some chick at work. Fuck that.
Right.
But you want that. Especially now if they can make up bullshit based on something that you wrote 10 years ago on fucking Twitter.
Exactly.
If they can say, well, you said 10 years ago, you said that you would only date chicks with a juicy ass. And now you grabbed my ass in the office. See, there's my proof.
See?
Past
practice, bitch. Past practice equals, dictates future performance. And here you are grabbing my juicy ass.
Yeah, even though you may not have done it. Fuck that, dude. Guys, that number should be 100%. 100% of guys should not want anything to do with one-on-one at work.
Right.
Nothing. One-on-one at work, I think if I was back in the corporate environment, I think I'd be asking some other supervisor to come in the office with me.
Well, that leads to the next thing here.
Oh, geez, okay.
21% of men said that they were reluctant to hire women for a job that would require close interaction, such as business travel. Mm-hmm. And 19% of men would be reluctant to hire an attractive woman.
Well, yeah.
The data above was collected in early 2019 from workers across a wide range of industries. Researchers had asked the same questions, albeit to different people, and with more of a focus on future expectations in early 2018. Just as the Me Too was in full swing, and depressingly, things appear to have gotten worse.
I think the stat might be wrong about the attractive women, though. Because what would be worse? Being accused of fucking hitting on an attractive chick or being accused of hitting on a really fucked up looking chick? That would be worse. That would be way worse on your rep. You lose your job and your fucking reputation.
That all-important reputation that I don't date pigs.
Well, I've already lost my job, but now I can't even fucking show my face around friends.
What, dude? You made a pass at her?
Yeah, now they think that I fucked Porky here. It's like, no. I didn't hit on Babe. I didn't.
In 2018, for example, 15% of the men said that they would be more reluctant to hire women for jobs that require close interpersonal interaction with women compared to 21% in 2019. Mm-hmm. So it's grown 6%.
Yeah.
But
that makes sense. I mean, dude, we're watching people day and night losing their gigs over this bullshit.
I agree.
Over, guys like Louis C.K. And Louis is a good example. He didn't do anything. I'll argue all day long. He didn't do anything wrong except be a creep. And there's no law against being a creep.
That's true.
These chicks didn't say, hey, put your dick away. If they would have said, put your dick away, and he didn't, okay, now you got some reason. But, even showing a chick your dick in that environment, I don't think that's wrong, do you?
No, especially when they're not associated with you in a working situation. They're just people hanging out in your dressing room.
Yeah, well, that's his dressing room.
Yeah.
If he wants to jerk his dick and have you watch, that's part of the gig. Don't watch, leave. Tell him to put his dick away. All they had to do is say, put your dick away, Lou. And if he didn't, then it's creepy. But I don't even think what he did is creepy. I really don't.
Yeah, it's not an employment situation.
Even if it was, I don't think it's creepy.
Well, it is creepy. I'll tell you a story. Mm-hmm. Now, this was long before this Me Too movement.
Okay.
So I was dating this girl. Mm-hmm. And she worked at a corporation.
Yeah.
Same corporation I worked at one point. Mm-hmm. And she told me, I was dating her, and she told me that there was this guy who worked in the warehouse. She was like a clerk for a distribution center type of warehouse type thing. Mm-hmm. And she said this guy, right before she went home from work, she would leave work for like around 5. Mm-hmm. He came bursting through the door with his dick in his hand, jerking it furiously.
Right.
And just as he got to her desk where she was sitting, he blew his load at her feet.
Damn, all right. But she didn't invite it.
No, he did this on his own.
Okay.
And of course, she was just like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
But that was, even in a funny way of saying this, that was just his way of saying, I like you.
Well, dude, I mean, and I'm almost certain your answer is going to be you've never had this kind of an experience, but this was when I was in the service. I had a female boss.
Okay.
She was a Filipino girl.
Okay.
Her name was Ligaya. White woman? No. No, her name was Ligaya.
All right.
And she was from the Philippines, and we used to hook up all the time. It was real casual. It was not relationship-ish at all.
Yeah, I was friends with benefits.
Yeah, it really was.
Yeah, did she get mayonnaise in her cooch? Oh, wait a minute, that's Clerks 2.
But she was my boss.
Yeah.
And sometimes we'd be messing around or just being at the place, and she'd be like, hey, I need you to go and do blah blah blah, go file these papers or whatever. And I would just say to her, just fucking around, I'd be like, I'll do that, but you got to rub my cock.
Okay.
I'd just be an ass.
Yeah, of course.
And sometimes she'd be like, you pull it out, I'll rub your cock. And I would pull it out right there at fucking work. I didn't care. I'd pull my dick out. And then and then she'd be like, just go fucking file me.
Yeah, of course.
Now, in today's world, I would be castigated as a Me Too offender, I would imagine.
Or you could go to jail.
Yeah, exactly. But it was just part of what we were doing.
Yeah.
You know, it was just kind of what we were doing at the time. She was into it, I was into it. So what's the problem? Now, I just wonder if now that I've told that story, if she'll come from out of the woodwork. This guy!
Yeah. 30 years ago.
1987. He pulled his wiener out.
Yeah.
And made me rub it so he would do his filing.
Right.
But dude, that was forever ago. And the thing is that even the chicks didn't have a problem. You know, I mean, we would play. I mean, that was kind of the game that we were all playing. And,
right.
And I don't know where it got lost, but there always used to be a sexual tension. And obviously that's the extreme level because that's who I am. But, you know, there always has been sexual tension in the workplace.
Yeah, it's men and women. That's how they react. That's how they interact, rather.
Yeah, and I get it that you don't want to go all, silly with it. You know, you don't want to be like, well, if you don't, fuck me on this desk, I'm going to fire you. You know, I get all that, but commenting and making a joke one way or the other, as long as it's both ways.
Yeah, it's mutual.
I'm a believer that, if somebody's uncomfortable with it, if a chick is, or a guy, whoever, if they're uncomfortable with it, there should be a gimme. Like there should be a, somehow you make a tit joke or something about some chick, and if she says, okay, I'm not comfortable with that anymore, or I'm not comfortable with that, that's like a gimme.
Yeah, you cut it off.
Yeah, you stop. And if you don't stop, then it's a problem.
Yeah, because it's just like, yeah, I told you I didn't appreciate that, so.
But that should be on both sides.
Right.
Both sides, it should be that way.
Right.
But if they don't, if they play along, then all of a sudden they change their mind because the guy doesn't, marry them or starts fucking somebody else in the office or whatever the fuck goes on, and they get mad. It should not be an offense. It shouldn't be an offense. It's like the world is all of a sudden stopping trying to have any kind of fun anymore.
Yeah, well, fun is not allowed.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, why? Why do you want to live in such a sterile, boring place?
Yeah, I agree.
It just sucks.
Yep.
Fuck me too, and these fucking bitches.
It's not just men who are afraid of women, by the way. Women also appear to be increasingly weary of hiring women. The 2018 survey results found that more than 10% of men and women said they expected to be less willing than before to hire attractive women. Note, the 2019 results for women are not yet public. Internalized misogyny really is a bitch.
I'd like to know why these people are gender profiling.
I don't know.
Who says that they're men or women?
There's been a lot of talk about gray areas in the Me Too movement. All this harassment business is very difficult for men, we're told, because nobody even knows what sexual harassment is anymore.
That's true.
Men are afraid to even shake a woman's hand in case she thinks that's harassment. Easier to just avoid contact altogether.
Yeah.
What's really interesting about this study is that it thoroughly debunks the argument that men are confused about what constitutes unacceptable behavior.
Right.
The very first thing researchers did was look at 19 behaviors, that is, emailing sexual jokes to a subordinate, for example, and get people to classify it as harassment or not. Surprise, surprise, both genders basically agreed on what harassment entails. Most men know what sexual harassment is, and most women know what it is. The idea that men don't know their behavior is bad and that women are making a mountain out of a molehill is largely untrue. If anything, women are more lenient in defining harassment.
See, bullshit on that.
See, that's why I thought that this would get your goat here.
Stop it. First of all, untrue or partial truth. There's partial truth to that. Like, I mean, you've seen me and Stephanie around each other.
Of course.
And when me and Stephanie are around each other, it's pretty raunchy. You know, I definitely make a lot of jokes about her tits and her ass and how I want to fuck her and blah, 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 blah.
Of course.
You know. But to me, it's weird because it's double-edged sword. To a stranger, they would probably look at that as absolutely sexual harassment.
Of course.
To me and her, it's just how we play.
Of right.
You know, she doesn't have a problem with that, and she'll say something snarky to me or, you know, whatever, and that's fine. You know, it's just the relationship that we have. Now, that being said, I realize that I can't take that relationship, that attitude, that principle, and like when I call your office and your girl that works in your office answers the phone, I can't say that same shit to her.
No, of course not.
You know, I have to be a different level of respect. And hey, how are you? Nice to speak to you. Is Wendell there so I can speak? You know, it's a different thing. There's what this article lacks is this article is written like there's a universal truth.
Yeah, well, that's the whole thing. It's just that we're all in agreements as to what's what.
But there's just not that universal truth. Every relationship that you have is different. Mm-hmm. You know, there's things I would say to women that I've dated that I would never say to my mother.
Of course.
And they're all women. You know, and at least I think they identify as such. You know, but they're all women. But you just wouldn't have that. You know, I mean, even with guys, the things that me and you say on this show, you wouldn't say to your dad.
No, of course not.
You know, because there's an individual level of respect or whatever, and all these dumb movements don't play into any of that stuff. And you know, to say that guys don't know that they're crossing a line, I think that's even a 50-50. Some of the obvious stuff, yeah, you grab a chick's ass, we all know that's crossing the line.
Of course.
At work, you unless you've actually put your dick inside her already, you cannot grab her ass.
Right, of course.
I think that's one way to look at it. You know, but I mean, stupid things. A chick with a great set of tits, if she comes walking by and you fucking take a look, it's not sexual harassment. Sorry, I'm a guy. I'm attracted to big tits, and there they are.
That's human nature. I'm
going to look at them. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to go, holy shit. And to be honest, if I did do that, if I did, you know, hide my face or whatever, isn't that more offensive?
Yeah.
Doesn't that put more attention on the fucking chick than less than just taking a glance and thinking to myself, boy, I'd like to stick my dick between those. You know, you can regulate this shit all you want. You're never going to take the thought pattern out of people. You're never going to do that. Whenever you see a hot chick, like, I don't know about you, but like the hottest thing to me is like of what chicks can wear is just a pair of jeans that are fucking ass hugger jeans. Mm-hmm. You know, not super tight, like not like skinny jeans necessarily, but just a regular pair of jeans, but they're tight on the ass. Mm-hmm. They got a shapely ass. That's fucking hot. You know, and you're never going to take that thought out of my head. You can tell me all day long, well, you shouldn't be looking at her and you shouldn't be ogling her or whatever. But you know what? I'm going to see that ass and I'm going to be like, man, I bet you that looks good fucking bent over on my fucking on my bed.
Right.
You know, right? You're just always going to think that.
Yeah, but that's personal to everybody.
Yeah.
You know, what you find attractive or hot or what gets your attention is different than what the next guy might find attractive or whatever the case may be.
And why is it anybody else's business?
It's the people who act on it in some way, shape, or form, whether it's commenting or making an unwanted advance because of it. Therein lies a problem.
Yeah. So what are we going to do? Outlaw dating?
No. But
how do you approach a girl to date her today in today's world? How do you approach a girl?
Well, that's the whole thing. That's really tough because you don't know what's going to set somebody off these days.
Exactly. Like, and I'll give you an example, and this is a personal example of me, and I don't know if you're the same way or not, but for me, if I have two ways that I kind of address women. If I'm friendly with the women, I'm a hug guy. I'll come in and give them a hug. Okay, if I'm really good friends with them, I might give them a kiss. Like me and Stephanie, we're always fucking, that kind of bullshit. But I'll always, anytime I see Stephanie, I get up and I at least give her a hug. And Kelly and, the various girls that I have in my life that I'm friends with. Anybody that I'm not friends with, I handshake, But I think in today's world, they don't want the hug thing, right? The hug thing could be turned into harassment, right?
Well, that's funny because that's what this next paragraph is about.
Oh, no shit. Where are you at? Are you the same way, or do you handshake everybody?
It just depends on who it is. Again, it's different for everybody.
Well, like Don's girlfriend.
I would give her a hug.
You give her a hug?
Yeah, because I know her.
So you're kind of in the same, if you know her and you're friends with her.
I know her. Yeah.
It's like it's not a pull her in tight and grab her ass on the way out hug.
Of course not. No.
Smush those titties up against your chest hug. It's just a, hey, how you doing?
Yeah.
It's like a handshake, basically.
Yeah.
It's just a half step above a handshake. It's so but it is. It's impossible with all these dumb rules to figure out what you're supposed to do or what you can or can't do. It's stupid.
Yeah. So there you go. Most men are perfectly aware of the difference between a friendly hug and a creepy hug. They are perfectly aware of what constitutes harassment and what doesn't.
No.
Which makes you wonder why so many men are afraid to interact with women at work.
Because it's not like there's a fucking written standing rule of it. That's what we were just saying a second ago.
Exactly.
I could come in and give Stephanie a hug, and that's fine. But then I could give Stephanie's friend a hug, and she might fucking complain about it.
Of course.
Because there's not a standard. There's not a difference. What this person finds is maybe she just finds me to be creepy.
Right.
My intent is not to be creepy, but if person X doesn't find me creepy and person Y does find me creepy, person Y is probably going to think the same exact thing that wasn't creepy to person X is creepy to person Y.
Exactly.
So this article is as flawed as the fucking dumbbell that wrote it.
That's exactly what I said at the beginning.
Yeah.
The answer to that question, perhaps, is that a lot of men aren't so much afraid of being accused of anything as they are angry that Me Too ever happened. They're just a bunch of angry males is what they're saying.
No, because honestly, I don't think many men care.
Yeah. They're angry that they've been made to think about their behavior, made to interrogate power dynamics that they took for granted, and they're punishing women for it and refusing to interact with them.
No, wrong. Just 100% wrong.
I agree with you what you're saying. They're punishing us.
There's no punishment to that. If anything, the women are punishing the guys for their fucking false sense of need for attention.
Yeah.
It's this false sense of it and this article proves it. Guys' answer is, you know what? If it's going to be a problem, this is how all guys think about everything. About everything. Doesn't matter. It could be fucking what tires you put on your car, kind of spark plugs you put in your car, who you date, if you go to family functions, everything falls under this single umbrella that I'm about to share with the world right now. Guys don't want to be bothered with. We don't want it to be a hassle. That's all we care about. If you're a chick and you're a hassle, we don't want to be bothered with you.
Right.
If now there's a new set of rules to dealing with chicks, we don't want to be bothered with you. If my spark plugs aren't going to make my car run to an optimal level, I don't want to be bothered with them. If my tires won't hold the road, I don't want to be bothered with them. If my uncle's going to be an asshole at the fucking family Thanksgiving, I don't want to be bothered with the family Thanksgiving. This is just another one of those things, and this is how guys fucking interact.
Yeah, they don't want any drama.
No, if there's a potential problem, if there's any sort of potential problem, we don't want to be bothered with it.
We'll avoid.
Like, I'll give a personal example from the last pay-per-view, the wrestling pay-per-view that I had here at the house. And John and Stephanie and John's brother AJ came over. Well, I don't get along at all with AJ's chick. Me and her just, it's oil and water. We don't get along.
All right.
So I invited John and Stephanie, and then I invited AJ to come over, and I said to him, and he goes, he asked me, he goes, is the invite just for me? Because he knows that I don't want nothing to do with his chick. And I said to him, I said, look, I'd rather you didn't bring her, but I get where you are with your deal. You know, and that was the best I could do. Translation, I don't want a fucking problem. I just want to watch some fucking wrestling. You know, in his head, I'm sure he translated it to, is she going to be a cunt? If so, she stays home. And she stayed home. She did not come to the wrestling thing. And you know what? There was no problem. It was a perfectly fine evening. Guys are like, am I wrong in thinking that there's no punishment to women? It's just you're becoming a pest.
Well, let me just put it this way.
Yeah.
If you're in a room with a snake,
okay,
a poisonous snake,
yeah,
if you stand by yourself in a corner and that snake is just wandering the floor,
mm-hmm.
chances are you're not going to get bitten by it.
Okay.
But there might be a chance you might get bitten by it.
Yeah, exactly.
So what are you going to do? You're going to get as far away from it as possible. You might get bitten, but again, you might not get bitten.
And if you want to be sure, then you just don't bring it. You go into a different room without the snake.
And it's the same way with, and this goes back not only to the Me Too movement, but this goes back to, what do you want to call a stereotype,
mm-hmm.
or profiling? I know everybody hates those words,
right?
But what is the most common vicious dog, stereotypical vicious dog? What is it?
Pit bull, Rottweiler,
pit bull.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, are all pit bulls mean?
No.
Have you known anybody that owned a pit bull?
Yes.
Were they friendly dogs?
Seem to be.
Did they tear your leg off?
Nope.
I know you know a girl by the name of Gina.
Yes, I do.
She had 2 pit bulls.
Mm-hmm.
Both of them were like big babies.
Right.
But to a stranger, they were a pit bull. Now,
right.
Without knowing the dogs or being introduced to them or being around them, if you saw the pit bulls, some people would go, that pit bull's going to bite my leg off,
mm-hmm.
tear my throat out.
Yeah.
You don't know. It might bite me. It might not bite me. But because it's a pit bull, you'll just avoid it because I don't want to find out.
Right.
That's exactly the same situation here. I'm just going to avoid it because I don't want to find out.
She didn't get those pit bulls to keep me away from her, did she?
No.
I love me some Gina.
Yeah. But my point is that a lot of people look at a pit bull and go, that's a vicious dog.
Right, sure.
That's it. That's all they know. And it's like, yeah, I'm not going to find out if it's friendly or not. I'm just not going to deal with it at all.
Exactly. And I don't want to find out if this chick is the one that's going to cost me my job. So I'm just not going to deal with her at all.
Exactly. I'm not going to take the chance.
Yeah. And in the end, and we've said this a million times before, guys really don't want chicks to be their friends. We don't.
Yep.
You know, I mean, everybody seems to have that one girl that's their friend. You know, it seems like most guys have one chick that's like their chick friend. Kind of keeps them balanced a little bit.
Yeah.
But let's face it, we could do without that person.
Mm-hmm.
In most cases.
Right.
And in reality, if it wasn't for the pussy, we would really not spend any time with chicks. 90% of the time.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, dude, name one situation that's made better. Name one other than a sexual type of a scenario. Name one thing that you would do better with a woman than a guy friend. Name one. And again, taking sexual stuff off the table.
Right.
I'm just talking about going to movies, going to a concert, watching TV, whatever it is that people do, going to a museum, whatever it is that people do. Is there anything, at least in the guy mentality, where it's like, you know what, this is way better when I do it with a chick than with my guy friends?
No.
There's nothing.
Nothing.
So, you know, you want to have the Me Too movement, it's going to be Me Too only, because y'all going to be by yourself. And that's fine. That's perfectly fine with us. We don't generally need that attention. We don't need somebody telling us how good we are. We don't need to fucking have somebody to fucking support us and take care of us and all that shit. By and large, we don't need any of the stuff that comes with chicks. We only bring in the chicks because we want to get laid. That's the only reason we bring them in 99% of the time. True?
I would agree.
How many female friends do you have that you actually spend time with?
I don't have a one.
You don't have a single one?
Not a single one.
Yeah, I have Stephanie.
But she's married.
Yeah. But I mean, she's my one friend that is outside of that.
Yeah, but if she wasn't married and she wasn't married to a friend of yours,
I'd go after it.
Yeah, but if she didn't want anything to do with you on that level,
yeah, we'd still be friends, I think.
You think so?
Well, if you know, it's a weird thing. Is I don't know. I mean, definitely was attracted to Stephanie before we were friends.
Yeah, but that was before she was married.
Yeah, true. That is true. I don't know. You know, it's hard to think if there was never the whole John and Stephanie piece to that puzzle, I probably would have never interacted with her ever. You know, I would have hit on her and she would have told me to go fuck myself, and that would have been that.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that I ever would have had the initial interaction of, hey, let's go out to the Indians game and, you know, see what the tribe's up to. You know, I don't think that would have happened.
No, because if you did that, it was like, well, this is a date and maybe I'll get lucky at the end of the game.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I've never made any bones about it. I definitely wanted to fuck Stephanie. Jesus Christ.
Of course.
Yeah, I mean, she's a hot girl. She's still a hot girl, even though she's fucking with that disaster John. But, you know, but yeah, I don't know. I honestly think it would, if she had not been in and out of dating John, I don't think I would have ever become friends with her.
There you
I think
go.
You're right on that.
There you go.
Yeah, I think I'd be back down to a 0 count.
All right, to finish this up, the answer to the question perhaps is that a lot of men aren't so much afraid of being accused of anything as that they are angry that the Me Too movement happened.
Right.
They're angry that they've been made to think about their behavior, made to interrogate power dynamics, blah, blah, blah. It's worth noting, I think, that the Harvard Business Review article previewing the study's 2019 results is headlined "The Me Too Backlash." You see the phrase a lot that the framing subtly implies that Me Too went too far, that a backlash is only natural. It's yet another form of victim blaming, another way to quietly put women back in their place.
By who? Who's doing this? Some dumb study.
Yeah.
Again, guys aren't saying this. Regular guys aren't saying this. Regular guys are saying what we've been saying. We just don't want the fucking hassle.
Yeah.
You're not worth the hassle.
Yeah. I don't need the trouble.
Yeah. But it's not even need. It's worth. And that's where I think these women that are fighting to give this, whatever chick wrote this fucking article, they still are stuck with the fact that they want us guys to admit that we need women.
Yeah, we don't.
But we need them. We need them. And so since we need them, it needs to be on a even playing field. And the truth is, we don't need you. We really don't need you, other than to fucking make babies and to, scratch nut out of our nuts. That's it. We don't need you.
Well, that's exactly what you're saying. You're putting them back in their place.
Yeah, well, yeah. Actually, yes. If you want to be around guys, don't be a pest. It's that simple. Don't be somebody that could ruin our career because we're just being dudes. And don't give me that bullshit of, well, you should want to change and you should want to. No, I don't. Guys don't. In theory, in my theory, I'm for separating all of it. I'm for getting rid of marriage. I'm for fucking getting rid of any benefits that come from marriage. I'm for everybody's on their fucking own. And you just live your life the way you live it and leave me the fuck alone. And if you do that, believe me, if you did that, if you took any benefit out of relationship and marriage, the world would, we wouldn't be overpopulated anymore. And the truth would work out to where guys would just fucking shun chicks. I honestly think that. Don't you think that?
Yeah, I do.
The only time we would include them is when we want to have kids. That's it. And then we'd lie to them to fucking pretend like we give a shit about them, have the kids, and get rid of them. That's it. They're this holier than thou feeling that of importance is ridiculous.
Right.
It's ridiculous. You're not that valuable to us. You got 3 inches of value squatted between your legs. That's your value. And some of those tubings and shit that you got inside you to make a fucking kid.
Yep.
That's your value. That's it. Go to the, I want to fucking put myself in jeopardy of losing my job because I don't know if I can hug a girl or fucking shake her hand or say good job and not be taken as a fucking insult. Fuck you. Fuck you. Go away. I'm not going to risk my fucking career for you, you stupid whores.
Yeah.
Fuck off.
That's it.
Just fuck off.
All right. Well, let's take a little break here.
Jesus, did we really just go 2 hours?
Yeah, close to 2 hours.
All right, I guess we'll come back and finish.
Yeah, we'll maybe do some Judge Aiken.
All right, that'll work.
All right. Well, since we're talking about Leave Me Alone,
yeah,
there was a bonus track. On the 2007 Dokken Lightning Strikes Again release.
All right.
And this is simply just entitled Leave Me Alone. It's Dokken exclusively here
on your classic metal show.